5, 6, 7, 8.
Stassi. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Gilmore to Say with Tara and Haley. I'm Tara. This is Haley. Hi, Haley.
Hi, Tara.
How does it feel now that we're back to school?
You know, it feels great, actually.
Feels the same, huh?
It does. I have a jar of pencils behind me now.
Yes, you do. You're very, very collegiate, very academic.
Yeah. I got a little Chilton scrunchie. It's approved.
Fun.
They let me use it. But yeah, you never know when you'll need a pencil.
Yeah,
To quote Mitchum Huntsberger.
it's true. And we're going to get more into that next week. But for now, we're in the early months of September. It's chilly here in New York City today when we're recording this. I had like a nice chill in the air. It was like high 50s, low 60s. And I got to walk through the park in my sweatshirt and my sweatpants. It was just, it was lovely.
Oh my God, can't relate.
I know. I wish you could relate. I wish that for you so much.
I think it's going to be 90 degrees like normal here today.
No. Oh my gosh. That's the thing. Is
Fall
that
in your heart. Fall in your heart.
We started posting our Gilmore Girls content on September 1st. And a lot of people were like, I can't deal with this yet because it's still 80, 90, 100 degrees where I am. And
But what's the temperature in your head?
Exactly. It's a
sweater
crisp
weather
50,
in my mind.
Sweater weather.
Thank you.
Actually, speaking of sweater weather, I got this very cute like short sleeve sweater, which I think is a really good transitional piece. I got it at Housing Works the other day and I was like, it's perfect.
Really?
It's only $15.
Queen.
It's cashmere.
Oh, wow. Nice.
I know.
No, I'm dressed a little bit like Chessie today. From
Yeah,
Parent
you're giving
Trap.
Chessie from Parent Trap. Did I tell you I watched that on the plane back to and from LA? I like did half of it on the way there, half of it on the way back.
Love.
Good times. I love that movie. What a great movie. Feel good.
Such a good movie.
Such a
That
feel
is
good
not
movie.
what we're here to talk about today, though.
Contrary to popular belief, we are not a Parent Trap
Speaking of
podcast.
travel,
Yes, speaking
we
of
are
travel,
traveling again.
We are. So the girlies are going to Michigan. We're going to Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is really exciting.
I've never been.
Neither have I. I am so excited. We are going to be a part of Stars Hollow Saturday, which is hosted by Rock, Paper, Scissors in Ann Arbor. Our friend Lisa reached out to us and was like, hey, we'd love to partner together. And we were like, okay, let's do it.
Because she said it was like, she offered us up some options and she was like, an in-person event would be like my dream. And like, us too, let's go.
Yeah. We're like,
so we are starting the day with coffee with Gilmore to Say.
Mm-hmm.
You buy a ticket for $20 and coffee's included. And so is a conversation with us.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
We hope that's the highlight, but you'll get coffee.
But you also get coffee. That's the incentive as well. And it's a whole day.
Yeah.
It's a whole day dedicated to just keeping those Gilmore Girls vibes alive. We've never been, so we can't necessarily speak to what the exact experience is going to be, but based on what they've shared online, Stars Hollow Saturday, which is Saturday, October 5th, is going to be just
the Gilmore Girls anniversary.
I know. It's so
we
cool.
We can spend that with our besties when they come
know.
have coffee with us.
And they're basically turning everything into kind of like a little mini Stars Hollow, which sounds like a lot of fun. So,
and I believe that you can get like a little passport and get stamps throughout all of the like pretend Stars Hollow as you go throughout your day. But it is from 9 to 9. Our event, the coffee event, is at 9 a.m.
You're going to be part of the 9 a.m. crowd, just like us.
The 9 a.m. crowd. We'll show up on our eye patches still. Like it'll be early morning, but we will wake up with a jolt with coffee and hopefully chatting with us as well. We'll be
coffee
a little jolt, but we'll play games as we always do. We'll have a fun conversation. We definitely want y'all to be a part of it, the conversation itself, because 9 a.m. leading a conversation, we'll see how it goes, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Wish us luck.
But also on the Thursday before, so this is taking place on Saturday, October 5th, on the Thursday evening before, we are going to be hosting Rock, Paper, Scissors virtual trivia night, Gilmore Girls trivia specifically.
Yes.
So you can go to rockpaperscissors.com, I believe. We'll put all this in the show notes and get tickets to that and get tickets to our show. I'm really excited. I'm like,
it's going to be a lot of fun.
I never thought to go to Michigan before until Lisa reached out to us, and now I'm so excited.
And she says that Ann Arbor is really cute in the fall. So
that's what I've heard, because isn't Ann Arbor a college town?
It is. It's University of Michigan.
Yeah. Oh, fun. My mom's from Michigan. She was telling me all about it.
Oh, so cool. Yeah, a lot of theater people are, studied at University of Michigan. It's has a huge theater program, musical theater specifically. And so I know a lot of people who have gone there and really loved their time there. So I'm excited to explore the town. It's going to be fun.
I think we'll have a lot of fun. I'll make friendship bracelets again, of course.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, it's going to be great. We hope you can join us if you're in, anywhere in the area. Even if you're not, come on out. It's going to be fun because it's not just about us. There's also going to be a whole event there as well. So it's going to be great.
And I'm excited for the event. Like, I'm excited to like have like a whole Stars Hollow day because like usually at our events we just meet our listeners, but like I'm excited to meet other Gilmore Girls fans too, to branch out and to meet our listeners, of course.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I can't wait. Also, some exciting news. Our fall gazebo dropped again today.
She got a refresh.
Updated fall gazebo. She's got some new little fun Easter eggs in her that I'm really excited about. Of course, props to Emily Kelly, Kelly Designs, who always does our gazebos. We love her.
It was so perfect because we kind of just sent her over like, here's a list of things that we want to add to like make her real fall explosion, if you will.
Yeah.
And she nailed it almost on the first try.
As she does
completely
every time. But what's really cool is that we also released a t-shirt today that is of the 4 gazebos, all 4 of them in a row, now that they've all been released. Now you are going to get a little preview of what our winter gazebo looks like because we also updated that one.
We did.
That will be released later this year on its own.
In the winter.
But we have a winter, spring, summer, fall gazebo t-shirt, which is very cool.
Yeah. And I like them all 4 in a row. They look so cute. Little
all next to each
versions.
other. Yeah. So cute.
All the friends, all the pals.
Yeah.
A year in the life, if you will.
It's true.
Of the gazebo itself.
So now you can have all the gazebos on your t-shirt. If you couldn't choose just one, or even if you did choose one of every one, you can have all 4 of them. You can have them all.
All at once.
But speaking of having it all, sometimes you can't have it all, which is the title of Stassi Schroeder's book that came out today, September 10th. Stassi is our guest on today's episode. We were so excited to talk to her a couple months ago, and we're excited to finally release this episode. For those of you who may not know her, she, of course, introduces herself in our conversation, but Stassi was on the show Vanderpump Rules, which is a reality TV show on Bravo, and we were so lucky to sit down and have a conversation with her because she released this book, You Can't Have It All, today. And it talks a lot about motherhood, girlhood, girl boss culture, how women specifically...
Kind of the death of the girl boss.
Yeah. And how women specifically have been, very overwhelmed by a lot of the pressures that have been put on them by society to have it all, to be the kind of woman who balances everything so seamlessly and perfectly. And she talks about the journey through having her second child, where she watched Gilmore Girls for the first time. So Gilmore Girls is talked about, and other women in pop culture are also talked about a lot in her book.
That was my favorite thing about the book is how many pop culture references there are.
Yeah.
Because like it's not necessarily a book that feels like Gilmore Girls, but it's really just about Stassi having kids, as well as like redefining what it all really means now.
Yeah.
I guess after the pandemic, everyone's lives sort of shifted and what their priorities were. But she makes so many pop culture references, so many TV show references.
Yeah.
That felt very like familiar. If you, of course, like Gilmore Girls, what are you doing here? If you don't like Gilmore Girls, I don't know. But Stassi really loves Gilmore Girls, and that's how I found her. That's what I mentioned in this episode is like I didn't really watch reality TV. I didn't know who she was until someone sent me a video of her talking about Gilmore Girls, and I love that was my introduction to her.
Totally. Yeah, she's fun. I've never watched Vanderpump Rules, but everybody who I spoke to in my immediate circles when I told them she was coming on the podcast was like, oh my God, you're going to love her. And I did. She's so down to earth. She's so real.
She's so fun. She's so funny.
So much fun. She's hilarious. And you can hear her voice really presently throughout her book, even if you don't know her. Once you meet her, you're like, oh,
yes.
So hear
this conversation with her is what it's like to read her book. It's just funny and heartwarming and just as lovely as she is.
So let's have a conversation with Stassi Schroeder.
Let's.
Stassi, thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to Gilmore to Say. We're so happy to have you.
Oh, I am so excited. Let's Gilmore Girls the fuck out of life right now. Let's do it
every day.
Oh my God. We are so excited to talk to you about Gilmore Girls. We're so excited to talk to you about your book, which is called You Can't Have It All. And it comes out today. How do you feel? Your book is released.
I feel like finally,
I know.
Finally, like, yes.
What a labor of love.
No, it like really is. It's like writing a book it's a lot. It's hard. And like, even when you're done, it's like you're not then fully done because then you got to wait for it to come out and then talk about all the things all over again. Mm-hmm. So I've just been itching for this moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of like having like your 5th child, it feels like.
It is like a child.
Into the world.
It is.
Yeah. Now you have to usher her into the world and show her off.
Show her off, get her an Instagram page.
Yeah.
True. Honestly, you might as well. So you talk about a lot in your book. You cover everything from girl boss culture to mom guilt. You even talk about fictional and non-fictional characters who've kind of circulated those topics. And you also talk about Gilmore Girls, which of course we will get into. But before we do, for anybody who may not be familiar with you and kind of your rise to fame and what led you to this book, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Stassi Schroeder. I was on a reality TV show called Vanderpump Rules for 8 years. So my 20s, all my 20s were on a reality show. And I started a podcast 8 years ago, was called Straight Up with Stassi. Now it's just called Stassi. Because, just one name.
Yeah, share.
Who needs anything else? I have a podcast with my husband called The Good, the Bad, the Baby. And this is my third book. And it's called You Can't Have It All, because over the years, I've realized that I just write about what's top of mind, what the theme of my life is. My first book was Next Level Basic, and it was just a basic bitch handbook. And then my second book was Off With My Head, where, I felt like I went through a bit of a rough time in 2020, and most of us did. And so that's what that was about. And what's been top of mind for me over the last few years is just the fact that I feel, and not just me, when I talk to other women, I feel like we're exhausted, and we're all told and made to feel like we have to be operating at 100% in every single thing that we do. And it's just not the vibe. I say it here now. No, it's not the vibe. And that is what this book is about.
I love it.
Yeah.
I had to reread the title a couple times because I was like, I feel like we've just been told we can have it all for so long that I was like, you can't have it all.
It's a little aggressive. It's a little mean.
No,
it's
I love it.
How dare I tell you that you can't have it all? But I explain that once you let go of the idea of having it all, you lead a much happier life. The middle is sometimes the sweetest spot. Truly.
Yeah, totally. I love that the title basically translates to you can not have it all and still be happy.
Yes.
What I loved, we're going to get into in a moment, all the things that we loved about this book, because it's so relatable. When I was reading it, I felt like I was talking to a friend just giving me advice. And
that's what I love so much about the book. It's it really does feel like you're just talking to me. I feel like you just were texting me this book, and it was just such in your authentic voice, which is what I really love.
That means a lot to me. Thank you.
It's so true. I could hear your voice through the book. And it was what was so relatable about it is so many things. But one of the things that really resonated with me was that I feel like society has kind of trained women specifically, but all of us in society, to believe that being content is synonymous with settling. And being content is really just that. It stands on its own. You can just be happy with what you have. You don't have to always think about what's coming next. And I think
we don't always have to be getting more, doing more, accomplishing more, buying more. Why the more all the time? One of my least favorite questions to be asked in interviews is so what else are you working on? Why?
I'm working on
I said, I'm
so
doing
much.
a lot. I'm I'm doing a lot right now. And that question always just made me feel oh, I should be doing something else also. And so then I had this constant feeling that I should just always be adding something else to my plate. And I just didn't like living that way.
Yeah. Because you want to answer I'm working on my sleep schedule, but then you seem lazy.
I'm working on my third rewatch of Gilmore Girls, but that's about it right now.
Yeah. I don't remember where the quote came from, but it was something along the lines of women were told they could be anything, but most of us heard we had to be everything. And I think that is really what is reflected in this book, is that it's exhausting to try and be everything or to even want everything. I don't want that. I want to take a lot of naps is what I want. And that to me is everything. And I like that you kind of redefined what it all is, because one of my favorite things is you talk about how younger you would not read this book. She would just throw away. Yeah, exactly. And it's just the evolution of what having it all really means. And it's you can't have it all in the sense of what everyone else wants you to have, but what you can have is what is enough for you, which is I feel what is pervaded through the book.
Thank you. I hope so. I just feel like when you do stereotypically, I guess, have it all, think about it. If you're exceeding in everything that you do, that's kind of a whirlwind situation. You don't have time to like sit back and enjoy the little wins or the little, you know, gorgeous parts of life, like literally just like having your iced coffee in the morning. You don't really appreciate like the small things because everything is just winning and great and awesome and everything's going well. I just think that, you know, striving for excelling in everything all at the same time, it's pointless. It like really is.
It's also overwhelming. It's exhausting. It is so
Yes.
overwhelming. And it just, we already have enough anxiety with what's going on in the world. And especially during the
Yes.
pandemic, I feel like the pandemic really shifted our perspective on what success meant for a lot of people. Anybody who is existing in the show business atmosphere, which all three of us were, you know, that came to a breaking point. And it was, a lot of us had to figure out what's next. What does it mean when I don't have all of those things vibrating at a high frequency in front of me? What does just existing look like? And who am I when I'm just existing?
That was one of the biggest wake-up calls for me because my whole life I've tied my self-worth with how much I'm accomplishing and how much I'm working. Like the more I work, the more I do, the better I feel about myself.
Yeah.
And then in 2020, we weren't allowed to do any of that. So what happens when the thing that makes you feel good about yourself is no longer an option? And that's, I feel like, what got me here, because I had to just like sit back and be like, well, what does make me feel good about myself? What do I enjoy? What brings me joy? Like, oh my God, am I practicing gratitude now? Holy shit. Like that's how we got here. That's how I got here.
Yeah, 100%. And you also touch on social media being a blessing and a curse. I loved you talking about kind of the spectrum of like relatable content that feels like, oh yes, I totally understand what they're saying. Like I feel the exact same way. And also like fantasy content where you just want to mindlessly scroll through things that just feel like kind of this unattainable ideal. And I love that because it's so accurate. When I scroll through TikTok and Instagram Reels and just Instagram in general, it can be like a vortex that really sucks you in, and like comparison is the thief of joy. It can really like get you down. Also like doom scrolling is a thing. But then there's also just this really nice, peaceful place where it's like relatable content and just content that I know is like mindless and I can just sit there and watch. It's just spectrum. And I love the way you talk about social media. I love that you say you can look like you have it all with the right filter, because that is,
you just swipe Paris over it.
and genuinely
makes everything
honestly
look better.
Smooth
it all out.
I was gonna say no Botox needed, just swipe on the Paris filter and it's all over. I also love that you say that social media should be viewed as a fictional movie, less a documentary, less like a docuseries of your life. And when you start to shift your perspective that way, it makes it really important. And social media kind of came to the forefront. Not that it wasn't, but especially during the pandemic, because we didn't have anything else. That was the way that we stayed tethered to our old lives or the people that were in them or people that we weren't seeing. And I do think that it has kind of promoted this idea of like, you still need to be working, hustling. But I think the pandemic also kind of taught us to slow down. And I think people kind of fall on one side or the other of that spectrum and the pendulum swings a little bit. But we're all starting to, I think, come to this realization, like, we need to maybe chill out a little bit. And that is something that Haley and I talk a lot about on this podcast. You know, our show is about the comfy. It's about the cozy. It's about like, come escape with us for a little bit, because we just want to sit down and watch Gilmore Girls, this show that makes you feel like you're being wrapped in a hug. And I think that's why we've built such a really strong community of women, is because they're like, yes, this is my comfort food too. Let's talk about it.
Yes. And lean in.
Yeah, lean in.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people went through the same thing that like all of us did from like 2020, where like we were very like achievement like based, and like that's where our self-worth came from, and like we felt certain ways, but we never like stopped to think about, do we want to feel this way?
Right.
Like, and like when it's all taken away or like it's all paused, you have to sit with your feelings. And it's like, I don't want to feel this way. I don't want to wake up every day feeling anxious to go to work because something's going to go wrong and it's going to impact how I feel for the next month for this like one thing at work that really has no bearing on who I am as a person. And so when all of that is taken away and we have to like sit with our feelings, it's like, yeah, I just want to be cozy. I just want to be comfortable.
I think
I
it's
want everything
just
to feel good.
Yeah, it's just about recognizing that, like, okay, we've been taught to be girl bosses. We've been taught to exceed at everything, to have everything we want, that we can accomplish anything. But do we want to? Wait, do I want to? I'm not sure I want to. And like, why do I have to?
Yeah. It's okay if like sometimes you want to, but sometimes you don't. Like, it's okay if you're in that place. I love that when you start to talk about like the girl boss, which you really start your book off strong with. I love that that was kind of what you hit us with on the outset. It was just like, hey, let's talk about the girl boss culture. Where'd that go? Remember that time?
Yeah.
Go back to that
went
time.
to Etsy.
It totally went to Etsy.
It did. And it's one of those things where I mean, I similarly to you have always tethered my self-worth to the things that I'm doing, the projects that I'm a part of. So Haley and I are both, you mentioned that you're a musical theater girl. We also are theater girlies. I also went to school for acting, but both of us worked on Broadway, which is how we connected. We were on TikTok talking about we were both talking about Gilmore Girls, which is how we met.
both had Gilmore Girls TikTok accounts, and that's how we met.
Yeah.
Oh my! Wait, 2 Broadway girls with Gilmore Girls TikToks,
Yeah.
and you didn't know each other?
No idea.
That's
we worked like 10
cool.
blocks away and never met until TikTok.
That's incredible.
But it wasn't
love
like
that
we
story.
really connected when we found out that we had both worked on Broadway, because I posted about coming back to my show and she was like, wait, do you work on Broadway? And I was like, yeah. She was like, oh, so did I. And I was like, oh, I love you even more
Yeah, it was like
now.
that one click of like, oh, you're not a weirdo. Like I can actually connect with you. You're a real person.
Oh, okay. Actually, no, you are a weirdo. We can connect with each other.
Which we quickly realized.
Yes. And then it was like, do you want to start a podcast together? And she was like, yeah. We didn't know each other. We didn't even meet until 8 months into doing the show together, because we just like wanted to talk about Gilmore Girls and build a community, and we trusted each other very blindly, and here we are.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
love
Theater really brings
that.
people together.
Yeah, seriously.
It does.
Wow,
But you're a
I
musical
love
theater
that.
girly. So tell me about your history.
I mean, I've never been on Broadway, and I'm
That's
like
okay.
I just appreciate musical theater. I was president of my drama club in high school. Does that count?
That totally counts.
Yeah,
100%.
That's perfect.
I'm just a fan. I'm a fan, so that's
love.
really cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And it's a business that like keeps people together. But again, a business that when it broke, when like everything kind of fell apart during the pandemic, a lot of people in the industry were like, what do I do next? And when Haley and I decided to start this podcast together, like we are girl bosses, we're girls, we're bosses, but we're
Yes.
also very tired.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've everything that you were talking about in your book about maintaining that energy while also releasing a lot of the pressure that accompanies being a girl boss was really important, because we have talked about it so much. So Haley actually ended up leaving New York and moving home to Georgia to be with her family. And I did the same during the pandemic. I went back to Connecticut to be with my family, but then I came back to New York. And so we've both kind of witnessed each other in these two very different lives while we are doing the same thing, this podcast and building this business together. Whereas like she has really cultivated and promoted, especially in her social media posts, like the art of being a soft girl. And I have been thrown back into this idea of like, you know, New York City is a hustle. It's always a hustle, whether you're walking through the park or like going to work, it's a hustle. And I now kind of long for that life that I had during the pandemic, where it was very soft. Whereas when I had it during the pandemic, I was like, oh my God, I can't wait to get back to my life where I can like do and not
I know
sit.
we always want what's not happening at the moment.
No, but it was
What
a bit
the
like
fuck is wrong
when
with
you
us?
mentioned cottagecore in your book. Like you're like, I want it like part of the year, and then I want to come back to my life.
Yeah, like I
think
can't
I'm more
fully
of-
commit.
Yeah, I know.
I can't.
I just kind of want
the
to.
dresses, like it just seems exhausting to get dressed that way every day. But I feel like if it's a spectrum, I lean more towards like wanting more cottagecore. I feel like Tara like maybe sits more in the middle. And that's kind of how I like started thinking about it. I'm like, are you fully cottagecore? Are you fully trying to like reintegrate into girl boss culture?
Yeah, it's
because
a
I also
spectrum.
like how you it's a weird spectrum. But I also like how you talk about how like the death of the girl boss was really positive, because it like really represented like a toxic culture that just like kind of like prevented people from like I guess like advocating for themselves, because they felt like what everyone else was doing was right, and then it became like an Etsy mug, but the idea of it is still good.
The idea of a girl boss, of course, it's still a good thing. Like we all like ambitious women who like want to be in charge of their lives and take care of shit. Like that's something to be admired and to strive for. And like, yes, of course. I think the idea of like the stereotypical girl boss, the way that I'm talking about it was like this phenomenon where like you had to fit this like perfect image of what the girl boss was, you know?
Yeah.
Like
I love you gave her outfit, like the blazer.
Yeah,
Red
the
lip,
blazer, the
blazer.
Gucci belts, like
Yeah.
loafers, like red lipstick for like a pop of color. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like there was just this like this image of this girl, this millennial woman who had started her own business, you know, from the ground up, and she was the face of the business, and you know, she had to do the social media post, and she, you know, it was that. And the fact that it was just such a specific idea of what it means to be a girl boss, where technically a doctor is a girl boss too, but that wasn't the image that we were being fed. So it was like the death of that stereotypical girl boss.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know?
And the rise
what
of a girl
needed.
boss who can also take a nap.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Could you talk about the return of like girlhood too, which is like, that's really like what I feel like brought all of us together, is just that love of like something that's like comfortable, that like we can just be really enthusiastic about in the same way that we were when we were kids.
Yes. Like Gilmore Girls.
Like Gilmore Girls, which is exactly how we connected. Like during the pandemic, I started talking about Gilmore Girls on a whim. So did Haley. And it was just kind of like, oh, there's this whole community of people who also love this thing. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the nitty gritty of it, which is what we talk about on this podcast, which is a lot of fun.
You know what's funny though is I don't watch reality TV, so I had never really heard about you before, but someone tagged me in, I don't remember if it was a reel or an Instagram, of you talking about either you're about to start watching Gilmore Girls or you had just started, and they were like, oh my God, you should have her on the podcast. I was like, who is this beautiful woman? And so then I like looked you up and I was like, oh wow, she's like a full like celebrity
She's a fan.
person.
Yeah.
I thought you were just like a podcaster who was just like chatting about Gilmore Girls. And so that was actually my first introduction to you, was you watching Gilmore Girls.
Okay, so that was recent because first of all, I can't believe that I didn't watch it in high school. Like, what the fuck was I doing in high school? Like,
Yeah,
what
I
was
was so curious to know, because you mentioned that you started watching it when you were pregnant with your second child.
Yes.
What do you think? Well, first of all, tell me your thoughts. Give me the rundown of your thoughts.
Well, it's like, where do I begin? Okay, like I don't know.
I know, right? Where do we even start?
Like, I'm embarrassed that I didn't see this in high school. I don't know what I was doing. I was, you know, being my theater president.
She was
you
a
know,
theater girly.
I didn't
yeah.
have time, I guess.
Yeah.
But people had always told me, like, once a year, once fall rolls around, there's always someone who's like, you need to watch Gilmore Girls. Like, you would really love it. Like, everything about it, you would love it. I'm like, yeah, but there's like 8 seasons and it's like from so long ago. So
it
like,
feels
I
so
feel
daunting. Yeah.
it does. And I was just like, if I didn't watch it then, why would I watch it now? I don't know. I never came around to it. And then when I was pregnant with Messer, my son, I was like, my second baby, I was like, okay, so I know I'm going to have some downtime after this baby. I'm going to be on the couch. What is the show that I'm going to watch while my baby's a newborn? And I thought about it a lot. I asked around and people were like, well, what do you want your vibe to be? I'm like, well, it's going to be September. Even though it's going to be hot as fuck outside still, I would like it to feel like fall. I want to light my pumpkin candles. I want to drink my, you know, autumn Starbucks coffees. I want to snuggle with my baby, put my air conditioning on really, really high and like wear sweaters. And I just want to feel cozy and good. And everyone said to me, Gilmore Girls, Gilmore Girls.
Yeah. Nothing better.
I started it right before I gave birth. Oh my God. Maybe the best show, one of the best shows ever created.
Ever.
I'm like, how have I not seen this before? It was, life-changing. And then I finished it all within a matter of months. Yeah.
I
was a
love the
journey.
part
That's
we
the
were
way to do
talking
it.
about how you were watching it when you inevitably were about to give birth to your son, and that the nurses asked you if you had laughed, and like the baby just kind of came out because it was so easy. It was I don't want to say easy. It was very fast.
It was very different from my first. It was like my contractions and like all of that came on so fast and so hard that by the time I got to the hospital, like he was ready to come out, and I just like didn't realize that. So I had gotten my iPad out thinking, you know, like, oh, I just got the epidural now. So like, fine, I can relax. I can watch Gilmore Girls. And then all of a sudden I'm like, it feels like a little aliens trying to get out of there. Can someone go check? Can someone check? And sure enough, he was literally about to come out. So yeah.
Do you remember what
Couldn't laugh enough at
episode
Gilmore
it
Girls.
was? Yeah. Do you remember what episode it was?
No. Oh, I don't. You guys, there's too many. There's no way.
Gosh, there's so many. But my question for you is, upon watching it for the first time, and then like kind of really getting to know the show, what do you think high school Stassi would have thought of the show? Like, do you think she would have had different thoughts? Do you think she would have been like tethered to different characters?
Yeah. Oh, yes. 100%. I think she would have really loved Rory. As an adult, I don't.
That was going to be another question that I asked, because in your book you talk about Emily, you talk about Lorelai, but you didn't mention Rory, and I was curious what your thoughts were, because we started watching this at a very young age, middle school, high school, and so of course we identified with Rory because she was around our age. If I watched this in high school, Rory would have been what I aspired to be. She would have been like who I relate to. She would have been on my vision board for everything. Like, she would have shaped my personality. I would be a different person right now if I had watched Gilmore Girls as in high school. Truly. I really think that's
why we wanted to ask that, because like Rory like absolutely shaped me. Like, I was like, I'm going to be a journalist. I love to read. I'm going to go to Yale. And those were all original thoughts to me. I didn't realize at the time that I was just like copying and pasting from a TV show. And
original.
she like, I would be a completely different person if like I hadn't just turned on the WB one day.
I think so. I truly believe that. But as an adult watching her, I'm like, oh, pick me, girl. You need like all this like male validation, and at the cost of like other women, at the expense of other women. Like, you're making poor decisions all the time. And I just like, what?
Yeah.
I just not the biggest fan of. I love the actress, like, but
of course, yeah.
So
Spladell is great, but it's interesting because a lot of discourse about Rory, especially as women who watched the show when they were younger, have grown up, has been that vibe. They're like, wait a minute, I loved Rory Gilmore as a kid. Why do I now like look at her and go, what are you doing? And I think that's just, we've changed as a society. We looked at her very differently when we were younger. But I think that it is a testament to the reality that like nobody's perfect. People make mistakes. The writer of the show, Amy Sherman Palladino, was like, she believes that people are inherently evil and have to have good beaten into them. Like, she likes to write characters that make, I know.
Wow.
She likes to write characters that are very like, they make bad choices, and they, in that sense, they then become relatable, because we as human beings, of course, are constantly going to make mistakes and poor decisions. It just was a shame when we then got to the revival and Rory hadn't changed or really grown.
That was a missed opportunity. That was a bummer. That felt like the finale episode of Game of Thrones, where it's like, what did you do to this precious catalog of episodes? These characters, you just took a giant poo-poo on it. Why did you, what was the point of this? Why'd you have to make us all sad? Like, we were rooting for you.
Yeah,
we were all rooting for you.
Truly. So to roll it back, what were your initial thoughts about the show? Like, who did you really, really love? Who did you really not love besides Rory?
Rory.
What were your general thoughts?
Well, my favorite is Emily.
Yes,
always.
You wrote about that in your book. Emily
always
Gilmore.
In forever. I aspire to be her. Like that, to me, I could watch any scene. Like, I will never I put my phone down for her scenes.
Yeah.
Like, there is no interrupting me with her scenes. I just think that she's just goals. But I think the thing that like really sticks out to me the most with Gilmore Girls is the set. Not to be like boring, but
we talk
the
about
set.
That all the time.
Okay, the set makes me feel a certain type of way. It just makes me feel happy. Like seeing all of the seasons, especially obviously the fall ones, the holiday ones, like those were obviously like the best. Like that town, just like the way everything about the set just makes me feel good. Like, that's like the main character of the show, in my opinion.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
totally
really is.
It really is. We talk about the town a lot, the townies and the people who make up the town. Because those episodes are honestly some of the best episodes, when you get a little bit of like that small town, Miss Patty, Babette and Maury, Tom the contractor, like the guys who come in, and even if they just make a brief appearance, it's just the fact that they're there.
Yes,
makes you feel like
so comforting. I looked at Bo like while I was watching, because he got into it. Hartford got into it. She loves singing the main song. Like,
I love that.
Bo's ringtone for me is the Super Mario version of the Gilmore Girls song.
Oh my
They
God,
make
I didn't
that.
know that existed.
I didn't even know there was one.
I know, because he's really into like he likes video games. He's like, well, I
Yeah.
don't want to just like have the Gilmore Girls song playing whenever
Carol King
I'm
just
out in
pops
public.
on. Yeah.
He's like, so we made it the Super Mario's version. But I remember
I love that.
looking over at Bo and being like, should we move to a small town? Is that? We're so
Should we do
happy
that?
I'm watching this show. Like, is that the life for us? It tricks you.
It
The show
does.
tricks
Yeah.
you.
It does. Because I mean, I grew up in Connecticut, and I definitely didn't grow up in a small town that was like Stars Hollow. I grew up in a small town, but it wasn't like that. And it's fine. It's good. It's easy. But similarly to what I was talking about before, like you still long for that life that you
Right.
have in LA. Like you cultivated a life somewhere else. And if and when you're ready to go to something like a small town, great. But I think that when you're kind of drawn to that like big city and that life, it can be a really nice escape. I don't know if it's a permanent thing.
For
so
sure.
to
And
speak.
also like I barely even like go and hang out with my neighbors. Like I like to like keep to myself. So if I was
I
in
don't
like a
wanna
little
touch anyone.
town where like everyone was just like constantly like knocking on my door, like had access to me, I would freak
Yeah.
the fuck out.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
usually.
I feel like being in a small town, like in the way that Gilmore Girls is, it's kind of like being on reality TV because, like, with Luke and Lorelai, like in the town meeting, everyone was
Yeah.
discussing their relationship and like they had a say on what happened, like in the aftermath. So I feel like maybe that's like a little bit of an experience that like you've
You're
already
so
had,
right.
and you've removed yourself from it.
You are so correct. That's exactly what that was like. That was a weird episode too. The fact
Yeah.
that the townspeople had so many, I enjoyed it, but like had so many
Yes, loved it.
opinions where it's like, where do you get off coming off? What? Yeah, that
But
was
it's-
strange, but I liked
everybody's
it.
up in everybody's business.
Yes. And that is like reality TV.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's true.
But like, see, I put myself in that position. Luke and Lorelai did not. They didn't ask for
Yeah.
that. They just wanted to be together.
I know.
Yeah.
Also, Luke is Bo. Like, I'm not joking.
Really?
What they
Really?
dress alike, which is like unfortunate. You know, like I don't really like flannel shirts and t-shirts.
Can't do anything about it.
Bo wears like a backwards or like a blue cap all the time. Their vibe is just so similar that
Oh my
it
God.
kind of freaks me out. Like
Yeah.
Bo is Luke.
Did he build you an ice skating rink?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Well,
I'm gonna
We
go
got a to-do
upstairs.
list
Bo,
for
if you're
him.
listening,
You know what, you
take
have
notes.
it.
Winter is coming. So you talked about Lorelai in your book, and it was very interesting because you put Taylor Swift and Lorelai Gilmore on the same page in your book, and that is the perfect description of both personalities of this podcast. We talk about Taylor Swift a lot. The Swiftie
time, yeah.
Gilmore Girls world has a Venn diagram, and the center part is very big,
yeah,
and
it's almost a circle.
almost a circle, not quite. There are people on the outskirts that are like
Yeah.
That makes
not
sense.
into it, but it
Yeah.
like a lot of her lyrics
No,
could
it,
be
it
put
actually
behind
makes
like,
sense.
any scene of Gilmore Girls.
Taylor Swift and Gilmore Girls, they give the same energy. It's just comforting.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
feels,
Yeah.
they just feel good.
Yeah.
Very emo. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. But you had a lot of things to say about Lorelai Gilmore. And so I'm curious if Bo gives off like that Luke aesthetic, have you ever identified with Lorelai, especially being a mom?
Lorelai no, I actually don't. Like I do when it comes to like sorry, I'm gonna yes and no. Let me explain. I do identify with Lorelai in that she's strong-willed and opinionated, and it's kind of like her way or the highway, which she makes the rules, like she wears the pants, like that's in the relationship, that's kind of how it is, and that's how I am with Bo. But I don't identify with Lorelai in the way that when I look at her, I think that she like thrives in chaos. I think like that's where she feels comfortable, and she just keeps making the same mistakes over again. And when her life is good, she finds a way to make it bad, or she sees the negative when it's not a negative thing. Like when her parents try to help, she has to always just like assume there's some ulterior motive where maybe her parents just want to help her.
Yeah.
And just seeing her, like parents who want to see you all the time, like there are worse things, you know? So like, why
Yeah.
are we complaining so much about that? Yeah, I think that I don't think I'm somebody who thrives in chaos. And I don't think I'm somebody who has a good thing and then goes around messing it up. Maybe in my 20s, but not now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think she's skeptical of contentment because it really is like when things start to settle down, she's like, oh, let's
Yeah. Like
let's find something from some direction that something's
Yeah.
going wrong.
Yeah.
Which we
I
like,
love
'cause that's
Lorelai.
the good drama.
Like I love her. Like I don't like I'm not in love with Rory. I love Lorelai. But I think she's a good example of how you can have a person who has a bunch of flaws and is still so likable.
Yeah.
It's like,
Totally.
where's Rory's likability, you guys? Where is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really feel like Lorelai's the main character too. Like
I think so, yeah.
Watching it when we were younger, I always thought like, oh, it's like a really like a true balance between them, but it's not. Like we get so much more of Lorelai's life and her feelings and all of that, because we always talk about the fact that Rory never externalizes her emotions. We never know what she's thinking, which I think kind of makes her a villain, because we never know what her intentions are when anything's happening.
Yes, true.
And a lot of that really comes to fruition in the relationships she has with Dean, Jess, and Logan. Like whenever there's any aftermath there, or even sometimes in the midst of it, it's like, Rory, what the fuck are you thinking? What are you feeling? Tell us, talk to us. But we don't get it. But it kind of leaves a lot of room, and some of our best conversations have come from the speculation of like the what if over a lot of those relationships, especially Jess, because their relationship kind of came to an end, and then there was all this like ambiguity surrounding the ending of it, and like him coming back and being like, I love you, and then asking him to run away with her, and then leaving, and then coming back and being like, why did you drop out of Yale? And like the community really, really rallies behind Jess because there was so much potential there and so many like unanswered questions that it leaves a lot of room for possibility. But I'm curious to know what your thoughts are, especially someone who didn't necessarily get attached to the character of Rory Gilmore. Did you have a lot of strong opinions about the men that she dated?
Yeah, 100%.
What team are you on?
I am fully Team Logan. Like there is no question.
I knew I liked you.
No question. I love Jess as like a character.
Yeah.
And like I can appreciate him for who he is. But the people, no offense, Tara, if you're a Jess ride or die.
I'm a Jess girly, but I'm a Jess girly because I loved him when I was 12. Like
Okay.
I loved him when I was 12. I had no concept of relationships or men or like toxic men or anything like that. As a woman in my 30s, I can appreciate Team Logan so much because I get it.
Yeah, like everyone who's Team Jess like forgets how awful he was to her. Like
he was a terrible boyfriend.
He abandons her.
Yeah.
He never like leaves without saying anything. I can't imagine like anything more traumatic. He's horrible at communicating. Runs away from everything, gets in trouble all the time. He's kind of a loser for a while. Like, what? I think just because he's like broody, mysterious, and like cool and like likes books. Yeah. They're like,
he reads.
That's why we're all like rallying around Jess. I know I've always been Team Logan, but it even surprises Bo too. We'll have these conversations with him. I do.
Of course, yeah.
And he's like, what? You're Team Logan? But he doesn't seem like your type. I'm like, it's not about that. It's
not about
a
me.
partner for me.
Yeah.
This isn't a partner for me. This is a partner for Rory.
There are a lot of people who are Team Jess because they love Jess.
I think
for them.
It has to be.
Less
because
for Rory.
they saw how he treated her. How could you say like, yeah, Jess and Rory should end up together? What?
I think that when he comes back in season 6 and he's like, why did you drop out of Yale? And he kind of like knocks some sense into her. I think that also is like the redemption arc for Jess Mariano, where they're like, oh, okay, he's gone through the growth. He cares.
So he cares
but that
a little,
doesn't necessarily mean
therefore
that they should be together. You know what I mean?
Just because he cares that she dropped out of school doesn't make him a great person. Like,
that's fair. Touche.
Exactly.
I will say though that his character arc and Paris Geller's character arc are two of the strongest on the show. You watch them from beginning to end and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that's on growth.
No, I really like Paris. I don't like what they did to her at the end either.
Oh, in the revival?
Yes.
Yeah, with her and Doyle.
Yeah, like why?
I
like,
know.
Just can't you just let us be happy? Like,
I know.
Let us be
No,
happy.
not Amy Sherman Palladino will not let
because
anybody
we're all
be
inherently
happy.
evil. Apparently, it feels very like Puritan-y. Like it feels like very like back in the day. You know?
Yeah, it's the Salem witch trials.
Yeah. I don't even remember what the paper was, but it was an interview that she gave that she said that, and it's like it's a direct quote, and I was just like, wow.
I'm gonna look that up. Like that's scary.
No,
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
she's very like proudly cynical, but I do think that's like why a lot of her characters again are relatable, is because she doesn't necessarily write that happy ending, which is why the ending that we got, which I don't know how familiar you are with the like lore of her time on Gilmore Girls, but she left the show after season 6. Season 7 was not written by her.
Oh.
And it was because she couldn't come to an agreement with the WB, she and her husband. And so they left the show after season 6. So season 7, if you watch it, is very different and not the vision she had. So the reason that she came back and did the revival was because she never got to end her own show. So the ending that we get in the revival is actually the ending she intended for the original series, where Rory and Lorelai are sitting and it's like, Mom, yes, I'm pregnant. And that's the end. So she was supposed to get pregnant back when she was like 22 years old, less when she was 32 when we watched the revival in 2016.
Yeah,
which is
because another reason she left is she wanted to season 7 and 8. And they said no because actor contracts were going to end after 7 and they'd have to renegotiate.
And there was a likelihood that in that renegotiation that those actors would probably negotiate more money for themselves.
Yeah.
And I don't think that the network wanted to guarantee that.
Wow.
At least that's the insinuation. That's what's been.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I'm happy for her that she got to complete her art because that's important.
So
like important. I would imagine like she spent so many years just feeling like there was a piece of her that like was missing and gone. So that makes me appreciate the revival or whatever you would call it.
Yeah,
the last
revival.
year. That makes me appreciate it more because that it meant so much to her to finish what she started.
Oh yeah.
I just wish that she didn't want to end it that way.
That's the thing. You don't have to love it.
We feel the exact
same way. We feel the same way that we appreciate the fact that she was able to come back and complete it. That's so special. And I can't imagine like leaving my baby that I built from the ground up to somebody else because the network wouldn't give me what I asked for.
For sure. That's depressing. That's
so sad.
Yeah.
And then like being able to come back 8 years later and like reunite with all these people in this world that you built like is so, I get like chills just thinking about it. And when we were watching it in real time, it has to be so different for someone who watches the series in completion and then immediately goes into the revival. For us, like we waited so long.
Yeah, like
and
I
then
watched
all
season
of a sudden,
7 finale live.
Yeah,
and then waited 9 years.
And
that is so. So then, how did you feel watching it? Then 9 years later,
I immediately started crying.
I mean, I saw when the Lalas happen and you see the people split and Lorelai sitting there on the gazebo and it's snowing.
Yes.
I'm thinking about how getting emotional. Like it is so beautiful. But also, like, speaking of the first moment to the last moment, I will never forget watching that last moment and being like, that's it?
Where's the rest?
Where's the rest of it? I jaw on the floor, like I sat there for like a whole minute being like, what just happened? And it took a minute to like sink in and be like, that's the end. That's the end. Because it's such a cliffhanger. And it implies that there's like this cycle restarting, right? Like the implication is that Rory is now pregnant. She's potentially going to be a single mom and Logan is the father of this baby. There's no question. I don't even know why there's discourse on it. There are people who are like, oh, it could be the Wookiee. Oh, maybe she slept with Jess. I'm like, no, Logan is the father of the baby.
Fucking nice in revival.
Not the Wookiee.
Oh my God.
Also, the math doesn't math.
But also, why did they do that to Rory with the Wookiee? Like, what? Seriously?
What?
Like, come on.
Weird. Also, how did that like technically work? Because she said he was in the costume. Like, so that. I have other questions about that too.
Why? They did her dirty with that.
Also, like, and we love musicals, but the musical we could have pared down on that musical.
Wait,
to really flesh out.
I had forgotten about that. I must have just like blocked it out.
It's a very odd.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. And I love Sutton Foster, Christian Borle, who did the musical. Like it's a fun concept. It went on a little too long, and I think we could have fleshed out a lot more. Like I think we could have fleshed out like Lane's storyline maybe a little bit more in the revival.
Yeah,
don't love what happened to her. I don't love that she
either.
ended up with Zach.
Me neither. He's so annoying.
He is the biggest man-child.
I know.
I don't
the
know
worst choice after Dave Rogowski.
They could have brought Adam Brody back. They could have done something. Could have been a lot of fun. Or she could have gone off and like. Again, like speaking of contentment, like it's okay that she's in a small town. It's okay that she plays in a local band with her husband. Like those things are great. But I don't know. I think we wanted a little bit more for Lane in a partner. And then subsequently we then are like bummed out that that's the person she's like settled down with, having kids with, and he's going off. He leaves at the end of season 7, right, to go be in like a band, and she's like, oh yeah, I'll come with you and stuff, and she's not doing it, and that kind of bums me out. So there's
I think it's the fact that like, yes, she might say she's content, but like you can tell she's not. You can tell she's not. And this isn't what she wanted. She didn't want twins at a young age. Like it's not what she wanted. And so she's just trying to make the best out of.
Make the most of it.
Yeah, make the most of what she has. And that's just kind of what makes it just be like, oh, wow. You know, that's what's kind of,
Yeah. I want to go back to you being Team Logan, actually, and how you felt about like the progression of their relationship. Like, he proposed to her. She said
she
no.
Should have said yes. So annoying. Like, just
do you
say
think
yes.
she should have said yes?
Yeah, I do. I think she should have said yes. I think he was a great boyfriend to her. He communicated well. Like, he tried to be he listened. He like fixed problems like when she brought it to his attention. You know, he didn't run from it. He wasn't aggressive. Like, just. You could tell he really loved her and he cared for her. And like he made sure she was taken care of. And I just, you know, I just really wanted them to end up together. I mean, I know. Do I think they should have gotten married like really young? No, but like what's wrong with remaining engaged for a long time? What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
Say yes and then like have a 5-year engagement.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay.
When she said no and I watched that live, that's like a core memory for me. I like sat in the chair for like an hour afterwards, just like completely overcome that like they were over and that the next episode was the end of Gilmore Girls, and then to come back 10 years later and they're having an affair and they're not together.
Yeah.
Like, what is that?
Yeah.
How did you feel about that?
I did not like it.
I loved
that he was in her life because I like him.
Of course.
I'm like not the biggest fan of like shadiness and lies and affairs. Like those storylines are never my favorite in any show or any movie. I just like, it's triggering, I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't like betrayal. Yeah. So to see that like Rory is just like doing that, it was just, no, not my favorite. Not my favorite at all.
Yeah.
And if they like each other so much to like continue having an affair and make time for each other, what's the deal? Get back together then.
Yeah, totally.
It feels like more of an effort to have the affair because he lives in London, she lives in the US, and like that's so hard. That's like you're putting in the work.
Yes.
Why not be together?
Might as well just be together.
Yeah. Yeah, it begs the question for me of what Amy had planned for season 7 and 8. And if that was kind of always what she saw being their end game, was like, they're not going to end up together for whatever reason, but they're going to continue to have a relationship together, kind of the same way that Christopher and Lorelai have this back and forth. But that's
one
kind
I don't
of
like.
The setup, right? It's the setup of like Lorelai has this guy who grew up in the same kind of like silver spoon in their mouth, kind of, they were raised together, right? But she was always kind of like, I don't know. You know, it sounds like she was the one who was a little bit like, until you change, I'm not going to be with you. And then he's
always
kind of
a great
always
way to
lingering,
start a relationship.
which is a great way. But he's always lingering in the background. Like the parallels there, of course, are that like Rory and Lorelai are both kind of drawn to people that understand them. And I think Logan understood Rory and Chris understood Lorelai. But then they end up, and for a lot of people in the fandom, they believe that maybe Jess is her Luke, and that's kind of the.
I think that's that's an easy thing to say.
But it's
I think
very
that's easy.
too.
That's
easy.
Like very easy.
Yeah, because I think the distinction between Chris and Logan, because people say like if you like Logan, you have to like Chris.
No,
I feel like the way that you're talking about, they both know, like Chris knows Lorelai and Logan knows Rory. I think the difference is that Logan knows how to take care of Rory. He knows what to do with the information.
Chris doesn't know.
Love that
Chris doesn't know. Chris doesn't know what to do with it.
That makes so much sense. I have never liked Chris. I won't watch the episodes where they're like back together. It like
when they get married.
It gives me the ick. It's what? Like I hated all of that. Like hated. Not one part of me found that enjoyable. I just
again season 7
from the beginning
wasn't written by the original writer. I don't think it would have happened.
Chris was just like not, I thought he was selfish and just like not that smart, not clever at all and reckless and not interesting enough to be reckless. At least Jess is like kind of interesting. So like, fine. Like I'll give you, I'll give you that. But like Chris is just kind of like a loser. You know what I mean? Yes, he becomes successful, but he still gives me loser energy. Like a loser, like it doesn't matter how much money you have or how successful you are. You still are kind of like a loser.
Yeah.
Does
the
that
one
make
thing
sense?
we'll give them, no.
Yeah.
It totally makes sense. Like, the one thing that we give them on this podcast is that David and Lauren, the actors who played them, so much chemistry. And I think that's what even kept anybody remotely interested in the possibility of them being together. Like I didn't ship them necessarily, but I understood it in season 2 when they were like maybe getting back together and like then Sherry gets pregnant and everything. Obviously you want her with Luke, but like you also kind of, when you know it's what she wants, you kind of want it for her, right? It's like she wants to be with Chris. She feels like he's kind of stepping up to the plate, showing up a little bit more. And I want her to be happy. So I'm like, if this is what's going to make her happy, I want that for her, this character.
In the beginning.
In the beginning. But
not
then
when they
as
actually
time went
got married.
on. No.
And like you could tell she didn't even want it. She was like recoiling. Like, no.
I know.
Like, why did we do this?
I know.
Why'd we have to experience that?
It genuinely was that is why I want to know what Amy would have had planned, because the season 7 writers are the ones who took us in that direction, and all power to them. It's not to like shit on them. They're like, they were just there to do a job and kind of carry like this torch that they were like, our leader isn't here anymore. What do we do? You know, but I really wonder how she would have handled, because Amy was the one who wrote Lorelai sleeping with Chris at the end of season 6 when she gives Luke that ultimatum. That's what she wrote. And I would love to know where she planned on taking that, because I don't think she would have taken it in the direction of Lorelai and Chris getting back together, getting married, going to Paris. Lorelai getting married without Rory there. Yeah. It just all of it.
And like that was her father. Like, why was he suggesting that? Like, it's not like it was a new guy who's like, well, it's my stepdaughter. I don't care. That's your daughter too.
That was your child.
What?
I'm really excited for you to like in your rewatch, hopefully this fall, to like go into 7 knowing that it was written by different writers. I think that you'll catch the vibe, because we kind of like, our opinion of the show kind of stops at 6. We call 7 really expensive fan fiction that we like, you know, pull in sometimes to reference, but we really just consider like the first 6 like the core of the show.
Now I just feel so much better about the fact that I just didn't like season 7. So now I'm like, okay, there's a reason.
You are not alone. You are not alone. We're actually we're in the middle of season 5. Like we just watched the Emily and Richard vow renewal episode.
We have a rewatch on our Patreon.
Good. And so we just rewatched it, and we're kind of like now at the beginning of Rory and Logan's relationship, and like Luke and Lorelai kind of falling apart, coming back together. But we know where we're headed. And I am very interested to watch with a discerning eye instead of just having it on because it's my comfort show, season 7, because I'm going to have so many thoughts that I probably have never thought before. I'm like an early seasons girly. That's also why I gravitate towards Jess. It's very nostalgic for me to watch like seasons 1 through 3, 4. I don't really watch the later seasons as much.
That makes sense too.
Right?
Also, can we just like, we haven't even mentioned Dean, how much he sucks too.
Oh, Stassi, we have
merch.
Dean Sucks merch.
Oh, yeah.
It just says Dean Sucks in like Barbie font. Like, it's just
like our first episode was like about how much we don't like Dean.
Our very first episode was how he was her most toxic boyfriend. That was where I first went viral on TikTok, was because I was like, can we talk about how Dean was Rory's most toxic boyfriend? Everybody was like, oh my God, yes. But then other people were like, he was perfect. And I'm like, he was not.
No.
He was not. He was awful. And watching it like growth is...
No.
Hello? Like, but even before that, like the jealousy and the like possessiveness, and he was just fighting with everyone.
And insecure.
And that's being a teenager, right? And a lot of people made that argument. Toxic.
That's the only thing that we give him.
That's the only thing we give him.
But like he remained a piece of shit later on too. So like we don't need to give him anything.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Thank you. And we never will again.
And that's on that.
And that's on Dean.
Do you have a favorite episode? Like one that like you like really gravitated towards, or like a couple?
I think I would have to go back and rewatch, because I only did that one big watch like 10 months ago or whatever. But I have gone back and like rewatched like the first couple of episodes, because just to put it on like when I like need background. So it's like those two are just like the ones that I've seen multiple times. I would need to do a rewatch, I feel like.
Yeah.
Well,
Are you gonna do one this
fall is upon us. You gotta. It's
Thank
the perfect
God.
time.
I know. It really is.
Yeah. And it'll be perfect because your book has just come out. You can kind of breathe a little easy and
Yeah.
celebrate with a Gilmore Girls rewatch.
Yes, I'll go back home. Like I'll have my book tour. Well, when this airs, I'll be on it. Then I can go home, chill out, get in my
Your decompressed
cozies,
time. Yes.
light the pumpkin candle, and just
Yep.
like get on with it.
Oh, it's just so good. I'm so excited for you to watch it again. There's like, I'm so jealous that, especially as like a grown adult, you got to experience Gilmore Girls for the first time, because we talk about this a lot, that like, of course we love that we've loved this show for a long time. It's nostalgic for a lot of us, but there's just a feeling of watching a show and getting invested in it for the first time and not knowing where it's going and not knowing like what twists and turns are coming up. That is so cool.
I know.
I'm so glad you got to experience that at such a special time.
No, I do feel blessed. I really do. Like blessed to have experienced that as like a 35-year-old. But like, what would I have been like if I had seen it in high school? You know, like that.
Yeah.
I will never know. I could have a completely different career. I could be living in a completely different place. I wouldn't have my kids maybe. Because I would have chosen something else.
When we started getting to the book and I learned your kids' names, I was like, oh my God, was Hartford the one that she had when she was watching Gilmore Girls? But then I realized she was your first child.
No, yeah. But once I started watching Gilmore Girls with her, and she kept hearing Hartford come up, she was like, Hartford. I'm like, oh, this is so cute. Yeah.
She's going to love it. She already does. But like, she's going to grow up with Gilmore Girls, which I think is so cool.
I know.
That's really important.
Yeah. Do you think when she gets older, we'll like sit down and watch the whole thing together again?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yes.
Yeah. Which I'm sure that will change your perspective too, like watching it with her, like as the Lorelai to her Rory, if you will.
I know. Oh my gosh,
So
that kind of
good.
makes me like getting my feelings.
I know. That's so special.
Well, speaking of, I realized that we never really even talked that much about Emily, who you said was your favorite character. We never really touched on her all that much.
Because she doesn't suck. You know, when we talk about people, we normally like to talk about their flaws. And
Emily,
I
to
see
pull them
zero.
apart. Yeah.
I see none.
See none. How do you feel about her relationship with Richard?
I liked it because I felt like it was really honest. You know, we didn't see just that stereotypical, our grandparents never fight, stay together forever. Like, I liked that we saw them kind of fall apart for a bit.
Yeah.
Like, I appreciated that.
Definitely. Us too. We had a conversation about this recently with another guest we had on, that they were like, oh, I didn't like that they fell apart. And I was like, they kind of needed to. We need to see that. We needed to see that they weren't perfect. And we had already seen the flaws in their marriage and in who they were as people. But we needed to see that like not every marriage is going to like constantly feel like this smooth moving machine.
Right.
They had their moment. They fell apart a little bit. I don't think any of us believed that they would never get back together.
No,
he was in
of
the
course.
pool house. He was like 10 feet away. But them getting back together and seeing that like how they reunite, I think we needed that. They needed that.
Yes. I loved that.
Knowing that you don't love betrayal, how did you feel about the whole situation where he was having lunch for the entirety of their marriage with one of his exes without Emily knowing?
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
When I buried. It's like crazy what you choose to remember and what you choose to forget. If I remember correctly, though, it wasn't like there was nothing inappropriate going on, though.
It wasn't nefarious. It was just that he
Yeah.
didn't tell her for like 40 years.
No, which is fucked up. It's
Like, how would you feel if Beau just like one day you found out that he was having lunch with his ex and just like didn't tell you?
I can't even like put myself in that situation because like it could never happen.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't. I don't, with smartphones and all that shit. Like I just like,
yeah, that's true. That's true.
You have his location.
Yeah.
Like how I just like we know where each other. What I don't know.
Yeah.
I just like can't even put myself in that position because I couldn't imagine him lying to me like that.
Right. Wouldn't
Which
that
is
be
like a
like
great place to be in.
which is amazing. I love that for you.
Thank you.
That's why I think Emily was just like, how do I move on? Like, how do I get over that? And he was like, what's the big deal? And she's like, that's a huge deal. And she did try to move past it for a while until she couldn't. And I understand. That's a big betrayal.
Yeah.
I know that nothing like inappropriate was necessarily going on, but it still feels like it's like cheating.
No, yes, it does. And it feels like an emotional kind of cheating, even though it technically wasn't. What was his excuse?
He's like,
He
we're
didn't
just
have one.
friends. We're just friends. She didn't tell Steven, her husband. And it's like, he just kind of brushed it off as if like, yeah, we've been getting together. It's like, well, if it wasn't a big deal, why didn't you tell her?
So I just want y'all to clarify this for me, because I'm like, not all of it is very clear. Every single week for 40 years.
No, once a year.
Oh, okay. I don't know
Once
why
a year
I just
for 40
thought,
years.
because I'm like,
Can
why
you
am I not
imagine?
remembering every
That
part
would
of
be
this?
so much.
No.
Yeah,
Every year.
Oh, once a year for 40 years.
Will life catch up?
That's interesting.
Right?
Well, I can't believe I don't remember this part that well.
Yeah. It was at the football game,
Yes.
the Yale game.
I'm really trying to imagine how I would
Yeah.
feel. Like, because I don't see anything wrong with it, with catching up with your ex ever, but it's the fact that he didn't tell
It's
her.
just that he
it's why
hit.
not? Yeah, like why
Yeah.
not tell her?
And they were engaged
Right.
before they got engaged. Like Emily was kind of like messed. in
You know,
their
it
relationship.
probably just like he did it once when it would have been inappropriate. The timing would have been inappropriate. And then like the next year they did it again. He's like, well, I can't tell her now because like I already did it. And then the lie got too big and then it became
Lie
a
got
thing. So
40
he's like,
years
well,
old.
well, now I like can't tell her. It's been 6 years. Well, now it's been like, so might as well just keep this a secret, you know? I'm not
Yeah.
making excuses for him. I'm just trying to
No.
figure
No,
his
it's
train
like
of thought.
you wanna put
Trying to
yourself
understand.
in the mindset of the person and be like, what were you thinking? Because
Yeah.
I think that Emily and Richard are villainized a lot. And I think that as we've gotten older, we've understood them a little bit more, similarly to like a lot of the characters on this show and how our opinions have changed since when we were kids. Because when we were kids and watching the show, it's like Lorelai saying her parents weren't great people. You were kind of like, yeah, I'm a kid. And sometimes I'm mad at my parents. Like you can kind of identify with it. But then when you're an adult and you're like, oh no, they're really not that bad. They're just trying to have a relationship.
Oh no, I've never
with her.
understood because I didn't watch it when I was in high school. So like I
Yeah.
never got the hate for the parents,
Yeah.
for Emily and Richard. Like I've only ever thought like, oh, I would love to have you guys as parents.
I would love
It's the
thousands of
only-
dollars in exchange for a martini.
Right?
Seriously.
The only time that I like get it, there are a handful of times. Like in the pilot, the way that Richard talks about Christopher in front of Lorelai, I would hate that if my parents were like talking about my daughter's father, who I know is kind of a loser.
Mhm.
And like anytime he says that he's doing really well at something, I'm like, are you really? I don't know if you are. And to hear my father be like, oh, you must take after your father. How's the motel? You know, to her when like Lorelai's very successful and runs an inn and like has made a name for herself. That, and then when Emily goes to Christopher and is like, gives him the invitation to the vow renewal and is like, you need to have your final shot with Lorelai. She shouldn't be with this guy Luke. And Christopher comes in and kind of like fuck shit up.
Yeah. Okay. correct.
Those are
That
the
was what I
moments.
was going to ask. Because
Those
you
are
said
the
she was
moments.
flawless, which I don't
Yeah.
not
yeah,
agree with. I love her. But like I was going to ask you how you feel about the way that she meddles in Lorelai's relationship. Because
No, you're
what made me
right.
laugh though is because when you were talking about Chris, it was like the exact way that Emily talks about Chris to him. When he was like, you're kind of weak and I've never thought much of you.
Yes. I
like,
forgot.
yeah.
I forgot that she did that because I just like choose to just like see the good in Emily.
Of
So
course, yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't.
No, when we love a character, especially if they're like a comfort character, we talk about this a lot with Logan, with Jess. It's like sometimes you're just like, I choose to see these things.
Yeah.
That's our problem is like we have to like almost have like two minds about the show now of like our diehard cherry picked opinions where we like absolutely love this character regardless. And then where we come to the podcast and we break them
Yeah,
down.
for sure. You guys have a tough job.
We like
know-
for apart something we love.
For real.
The thing is, though, is that like it's because we've been watching it for so long. It's just like second nature. It's just ingrained in there. Where like it, you know, I can like pull it out. Like we've Scott Patterson, who plays Luke, has a podcast, and I'm able to like disassociate almost because I've known the show for so long that I'm like, you are Luke, and then you are Scott, and I am able to like disconnect the two. I don't know
What does
why.
he talk about?
He talks about the show. He talks about like goes episode by episode.
What?
He had never watched the show.
Oh, you didn't
before.
know that?
No.
Yeah, so he's never watched
seen
the
it,
show
and
before.
They're in season 7.
Yeah, he's had it for like a little over 3 years now.
Do we think that they would ever make another one?
We hope not.
Do you want another one?
I would.
Like, would you want
Because even when
do?
something's bad, I'll still take it. Like this, it's like how I feel about Sex in the City and just like
Oh,
that. It's like
girl.
the worst show ever, but I'll still
It's
take
so
it.
bad, but I'll take as much as I can get.
I'll take it. Like
when
I'll
you were
take it even
talking
if it's
about
bad.
her holding Big as he was dying, and then I was just like,
And then
that
saying-
episode made me so angry.
Yeah, everything
I
about
just
it.
was like jaw on the floor, like, what the fuck just happened? It
No,
was
but then
so crazy.
when Carrie Bradshaw then asks and wonders whether Big was a big mistake, like, what is wrong with you, lady? Like, what is wrong with you? You took us through this whole journey, years and years and years of your love story.
we had
for
to watch
him
you
die
cheat on Aiden.
Yes. For him to then die, and then for you to wonder if that whole journey that we all went on was for nothing, was just a mistake. Get out of here.
I know.
Yeah. Tara also has a Sex and the City podcast.
I do. Where we're going episode by episode and we're answering Carrie's questions from the perspective of 2024, because like it's been 25 years and like the city is still it's very different, but it's also the same.
Yeah.
So
that was the show I watched my first pregnancy. I mean, I'd already
love
seen it a
it.
million
Really?
times, but like, it
yes,
was
I
just
saw
like a
that in your
comfort
book.
watch.
I love it. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of whether or not they're going to do another one, we kind of hope they don't, because we're just like, you know what? Let's leave this alone. Amy ended it the way she wanted to, though I would love to watch it.
Oh, I would devour it.
Would you prefer a prequel of Emily and Richard, a la like The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, or a second revival?
Can I have both?
Sure, you can
Why
have
don't
both.
You can have it all.
Yeah.
You can have it all. In
I
this
choose-
scenario, you can.
I choose both.
Wouldn't that be fun to
Yeah.
watch?
I 100% choose both. Yes.
Yeah.
I'd really like to watch that.
I'd love to see a prequel. I love a prequel. Like prequel always just, I don't know, just makes me
So
happy.
do I. House of the Dragon. I'm obsessed.
My boyfriend's watching,
Yes.
he calls it The Dragon Show, and he loves it. They're having so much fun. I did not watch Game of Thrones, so I haven't watched it with him, but I have to. That's going to be my one of my next shows.
What do you mean?
I know.
I feel the same way.
I missed the train.
What were you doing
I
when the
have
rest
no
of the
idea.
world was watching Game of what were
I
you
was
doing
watching
on
Gilmore
Sunday
Girls.
nights?
I was watching Gilmore Girls. That's what I was doing.
yeah.
But I have to get into it, and I love a prequel. That's why I loved Wicked so much when I was a kid, because I grew up watching The Wizard of Oz. So when Wicked came out, I was like, this is amazing. So I think
Yeah.
I would really love seeing a prequel of either like Lorelai growing up or like her early days in Stars Hollow.
I
or
don't think I want
really-
that. I think I want Emily.
You want the Emily and Richard.
and Richard.
Yeah, that's what I lean more towards. It would be exciting to see the two of them meet and
Yeah.
get Penelon Law, and like maybe she's a character in the show. Like that would be so fun.
Yeah, I like that
love
idea
that.
a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get on it.
Oh, let's do it. Here we go. We're gonna
Call
write
the
it.
agents.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
But my last question for you is, you kind of broke down, you talked a lot about motherhood, which I really loved, and you broke down kind of different stereotypes of moms, which I also loved. If there was a mom character in Gilmore Girls that you really like wanted to be best friends with, who do you think you would align most with? Who would be like your mom bestie from Gilmore Girls? Because there are a lot of different moms on the show. You got Emily, you got Mrs. Kim, you got Lorelai, you've got Suki. You end up having Lane. You know, there are so many different types, and they are all different kinds of moms. But who would be like your best friend, who you would kind of make you feel like
Commiserate
you
with.
could commiserate with?
Honestly, I keep going back to Emily. I mean,
Yeah.
we obviously have like a big age gap, but like I thought she seems like a great conversationalist. She's
Yeah.
clever. She's her humor's dark. Like she's not like a sunny person. And I just like
No.
I like people that are kind of like a little rough like that. It's not like she's rough.
Yeah.
That's not the right word. There's something just like cynical about her I just appreciate her. And the way she talks, she's just like so frank, and so she's not trying to be anything that she's not. Like, you know what
Yeah.
you're getting with Emily. Like
Totally.
I would know exactly what I was getting. I would know what to expect, and I'd look forward to it.
Yeah.
And I love Suki
love
too.
Oh, I
Suki's-
know.
I mean, I love Suki. Like,
she'd
yeah,
make
I
a
would love
great
to have her as
snack.
a friend.
Yeah, she'd make
Yeah.
great snacks. It's
Suki
true.
would be a great friend to have.
Yeah.
So Suki, and Emily, if we could just be like this little threesome,
Ooh,
we'd be
trio.
unstoppable.
What a
Yeah.
trio! Genuinely, you could run the
Unstoppable.
Y'all
world.
should start a podcast.
I love that. Oh, that'd be perfect. Well, Stassi, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys. This was so fun.
Oh,
Thank
oh my
you.
gosh. I know. Again, when I read that you wanted women and moms in your life who could talk to you about Gilmore Girls for 40 minutes, I was like, can do.
Here we are.
Not a mom. I have a cat. That's about it. But can do. I love it. You are welcome back anytime to talk about Gilmore Girls, especially once you do your rewatch again. If you have other thoughts, let us know. But in the meantime, Stassi's book is available now. You can't have it all. I'm so excited for y'all to read it. It is such a great, easy read. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. It's just like, feels like you're talking to a friend. And it's so relatable. And
Thank you.
It's available now.
Thanks, guys.